Hey everyone, this is Alfred from The Prompted, and we've got a really exciting video because we're starting to look at building AI agents for your Shopify store. And today's agent will be to gather and report on store metrics. So if you've got a Shopify store, then you know how important it is to regularly track your store metrics. Much like how doctors will check your health vitals like blood pressure and heart rate, you will also want to check on your business vitals. So that could be purchases, ad spend, ROAS, MER, and you'll want to do those on a daily basis because if anything goes awry or if you need to pounce on opportunities when they show up, then you're able to do that by reacting quickly. The problem is that it's time consuming and a hassle to have to check all these separate analytics. You've got Shopify, Facebook, Google, TikTok, and then you have to bring them all together to see what's going on. So what ends up happening is we just don't check as often as we should. And we could use dashboarding tools like Triple Whale and Northbeam, but those can get expensive. But this is the era of AI. So what if we took all of the work of checking those different platforms and just gave that job to an AI agent? And they will just let us know how things are going. Well, that's exactly what we'll be exploring today. And we'll be using N8N to build out this agent. So let's jump in. Okay, so let's just run a quick demo on what this agent does. So we've got in here N8N, so this is our agent, and we've got Slack here where this agent is connected to. So let's say, for example, we say, you can already see some of these questions I was doing. So let's say, what are my store metrics for February 18th? So 2 days ago, or we could do it this way. 2 days ago. And so, oh, sorry, I have to actually initiate test workflow for this to work. And then let's ask that question again. So right now, we are on inactive, so we just are testing the workflow. But you can see here is working through, right? Every time it kind of highlights, it's telling you which part of the agent is activating. And once it's done, it gives us a report for on February 18, we have, this revenue, these orders, this AOV, and this is our ad spend, our ROAS, CPA, etc. And this is actually real data for a store that we're connected to, which is all really cool, right? It's normally it takes a little while to have to go through all of Shopify and Facebook to get all this data, but now this agent just does it for us. So why don't we talk a little bit about how we put this agent together so that you can actually do it yourself. So we built it in N8N, like I mentioned, which is a really good tool to build out workflows. And they have these nodes here, these pre-built nodes to help build out your AI agents. And so we first have a Slack trigger. So you can see here when we talked into Slack, triggers the agent, and then that message gets passed into our node here. So our AI agent. And then the AI agent is made up of three things, right? So it's got an AI model it's connected to. So we're connected to, OpenAI. We've got memory, so it can kind of keep track of the different messages that are being used. And it's got a list of tools. And so we've got Shopify store details. So I'll explain what all of these are afterwards. We've got Shopify orders. We've got the Facebook ad accounts. We've got currency conversion, FX rates, and a calculator. And then once that's all done, it'll gather all that information. It'll do its thing, and then it'll output the message like we saw right here, right? So we saw here that the message got output. So we could do it again. So let's test the workflow, and let's say, what are our metrics over the last 7 days, right? And then it's going to go do its thing again. You can see here it's activating different tools again. It's gathering the orders from Shopify. It's gathering the ads data from Facebook. And then it's calculating it with the calculator. And then there we go. So over this time period, we have, this many sales, this many orders, and we've, our ROAS is 2.58, etc. Right? So we've got all this data being calculated for us automatically. So super handy. And if you are looking to get your daily metrics for yourself, then you might want to consider building an agent for yourself. So let's dive into a little bit on how these settings are put together. So the first one we've got is our Slack trigger, right? So in here, we connect it with our Slack account. I'm not going to go over how to get all the APIs from different tools, right? So that's something that you can probably find on the internet, or if it's something that you really want me to cover, then just let me know in the comments and we could do more of a deep dive into how to build everything from scratch with gathering the APIs from Slack and from Facebook and from Shopify, etc., and bringing it all together. But you do have to create a Slack account or connect a Slack account, right? So you could connect one here, you get your access token, you put it in there, and then we connect the channel that we're looking for so that each channel has a specific ID. So this is the one that we are looking at. And then on the Slack side, you have to also set up some settings. But basically what we're doing here is we are gathering the text, right? So what are the metrics for the last 7 days? You can see that there. And then that message gets passed to the AI agent. And so in the AI agent, we are using this JSON.text, right? So you can actually, you can see here, this is these are the inputs from the Slack trigger. So you can actually just drag this in here and say, oh, I want the JSON text. So that's the variable we got there, but we already have it in there, so we don't need to do it twice. But basically these inputs can be used in your agent. And so this text is kind of like your prompt, right? And so if you have this as an expression, then it becomes a variable. You can see here that variable equates to what are our metrics over the last 7 days, which is the message we had sent in Slack. And then we have a system message. So this is like a system prompt. This is the instructions that defines what our AI agent is doing. And so we have this as an expression. We've got, it's pretty long, right? So because it explains all the different things that this AI agent should be doing. So I won't read the whole thing. You can pause and read through it yourself if you like. But what we're doing here is we're basically saying, okay, you're an AI agent. You're an assistant, Shopify assistant, and you're going to have access to certain tools. Then we explain, we'll give it the date first, because otherwise it's not going to know what the day is. And then we give some instructions on how to format the message, right? Because we want to output certain metrics. And then we give some instructions on what to do with the data, and then what tools are available, right? So we say that there's a Shopify tool, right, where you can grab the Shopify data, the orders, and we'll be looking at all the different tools in a second. There's going to be one to get the store details, right? That's going to be where we can find the currency and stuff like that. Then we have information about the ad account, right? So like the ad spend, all of that. In this case, we have a currency conversion, FX rates tool, because in this case, the ad account is actually in Canadian dollars, but the Shopify store is in USD. So it converts those currencies so that we have an accurate comparison. And then we also have a calculator, because LLMs are just notoriously bad at doing math. So the calculator is to help with that limitation. And then we define all of our metrics as well. So it kind of explains what each metric does, so that we can calculate everything together. Now, this may seem kind of complicated, but essentially what we're doing here is, because N8N is more of a low code tool, we can use our AI models to give instructions on how everything is put together. Because if you think about it, this workflow here is kind of like a cross between what we do manually, where we'd grab everything, and Triple Whale or some sort of dashboarding tool like Triple Whale, where Triple Whale, it's very deterministic, right? It's like it just says, hey, I know exactly which data points I need to grab, and it's just programmed in to do the same thing every time. And then when we do it manually, then we're kind of more like deciding what pieces of information we want to grab. And so it's kind of like somewhere in between, right? Where we are saying what the metrics are and we define them, but we don't actually have to code it ourselves. So if you don't have coding experience, this is great, right? Because you could just describe in plain English exactly how you want the calculations to perform, and the model is going to be able to interpret that and do those calculations for you. So that's the guts of the AI agent, but it needs to be, in order for it to work, it needs all of these additional nodes to attach to it, right? And so the most important one here is the chat model that we're using. So in this case, we have an OpenAI chat model node. We connect our OpenAI account. It's similar to what we did with Slack, right? You need an API key, and you put it in there, and then you can start using the the OpenAI APIs. And in this case, it's using GPT-4, but we could be using any other model. GPT-4 might be a little bit more expensive, but it is smarter, right, than let's say 4.0 mini. So you have to kind of play around with the models a little bit. I have been using 4.0 mini or 4.0, generally speaking. 4.0 mini is much cheaper, so I try to use it whenever possible. But sometimes for a more complex agent where there's a lot of instruction, similar to the one that we have here, there's quite a bit of instruction here. I found that 4.0 is just a little bit more consistent. So anyway, we connect our OpenAI chat model. We connect memory, right? So this is just a really simple memory. It keeps track of the different messages that we've put in, right? So you can see here, what were my sales yesterday? What are our metrics over the last 7 days? So this is just the history of our messages, right? So you can actually see here, what are my sales yesterday, right? So that's probably the message that we're seeing there. It just has that memory so that you can converse with it. Because without it, it'll just see the one message and then not have that history of the messages you sent before. So then that context wouldn't be there when you're trying to just chat with it like you would like ChatGPT, for example. Okay, and on to the tools. We have 5 tools here. Let's start with the Shopify one, because this is actually a pre-built node. It's a Shopify node, and you can specify your access token, right? So you just need your access token, your secret key, and then which shop domain. And then once you've set that up, then you can use you can get information from the Shopify API. So you have the option to use order, product, or a custom API call. So we're just using the orders ones because that's what we're interested in right now. And the operation is, you got many different choices, but we're using get many because we're going to be getting multiple orders, right? Not just a single one. And then the nice thing about this is you can actually have these fields automatically determined by the model, right? So you can just use AI. Let me just turn this off for a second, right? Because normally you might need to put in a variable, or you can put in a fixed number. But because we're using, it's sort of like a chat model where we want to chat with it, and it's going to figure out what that date range is, right? Because remember I said the last 7 days, or what about 2 days ago? I didn't specify the exact date, but it was smart enough to be able to convert it into a date. And that's because we're using the model to kind of figure that out. And then we have some other fields here. So this is using the Shopify API. I'm using the fulfillment status any because that way, let's say if there was an order that was closed or something like that, or it was fulfilled, then it'll still grab it so that we at least have that information. And then the fields that I'm interested in for this specific agent, but if you wanted to do more with it, we can always manipulate it or do more or add fields to it. But here we're just looking for total price, name, and the ID. So we're primarily looking at how much each order, what's the value of each order. But if you wanted to expand on this agent and start questioning it about what items were in the orders and try to find out what's the best selling items, then we can add line items or just different fields to gather that data. Then we can add more information into the AI agent system prompt so that it can add that feature in, right? But that's not what we're doing today. But if it is something you're interested in, then those are things that we can look at. Okay, so that's the Shopify node. We also have a second Shopify node in the form of an HTTP request, because in this case we're using the shop endpoint. So we want to gather basic information like the name, the currency, the time zone, because I mentioned earlier that the store currency for Shopify is a little bit different than the one for Facebook. Let's move along. Next, we have our Facebook ad account. So this is another HTTP request. We're using the Graph API from Facebook, and we're on the account level for this request. And then here we can actually get information like the spend, the account currency, actions, and action value. So that's going to be the number of purchases and the purchase conversion value. So the sales that comes from those purchases. So those are going to be the Facebook metrics that we need, and that's going to help us get ROAS and MER and that type of thing, which is part of the metrics that we want to gather from our agent, right? So once we have the Shopify data and the Facebook data, like we're getting from here, then we can actually calculate all these. Okay, so what else are we getting? We're also getting the fields for the time range, and we're saying its value is provided by the model. So when I tested this out, I was trying to put the parameters here. So you can see here, these after the question mark, these are set as parameters. Now, I put it in the request directly because when I tried to add them as parameters here, for some reason, it doesn't like having some fields as fixed and some fields as like automatically done by the model. And so what I did here is I put the variable one, right, by model down here, and then all the fixed ones, I just put it directly into the URL. Because what's happening here on the back end is it takes these parameters and then sticks it into the URL to send the request. So that's why we're doing it that way. Okay, next we've got FX rates. So this is we're using the TransferWise or the Wise API for FX rates. They've got a free API you can use to just get currency conversion pairs. So in this case, we're converting CAD with USD. So you can see here when this conversion was done, that's the rate. So then we can just convert our Canadian dollars to US. And then we also have these two parameters, source and target. So that's source is the original currency, which in this case is Canadian dollars. And we want to convert it to US dollars, right? The target. So that's why it's giving it this way. And then we've got a calculator. Calculator is no settings, but basically if we need to do any sort of arithmetic, then we use the calculator because LLMs just cannot do math by themselves very well. So we tell it to say, so we basically tell the agent, if you're doing any math, use the calculator. And that way you get more accurate results. So that's our AI agent to gather store metrics that we can just chat with in Slack. If you use a different chat application, you could just connect that instead, like Telegram or anything else really, WhatsApp. We use Slack, so I just connected into Slack, and we have all these different tools. But if you're using Google Ads or using TikTok ads, you can actually connect those tools into your agent as well, and it will also gather that data so it can make it part of the calculations for your output. Now, this store doesn't use those platforms, which is why we're just connected to Facebook. But you can very much add those in. So this is just sort of a baseline to show you what can be done, right? But there are some issues with AI, this AI agent and AI agents in general, and they're still very much in the infancy. One thing I notice when building this is that sometimes it can struggle with consistency. So you have to be very prescriptive sometimes with your prompt, which is why this prompt here is actually quite long, because I'm trying to tell it what to do, and wherever it's inconsistent, I try to be more specific in those areas. So that's one thing. The other thing is, which model are you using? Because smarter models are going to start to understand what you want better, which would lead to more accurate results. But there's other things we could do. We could build more guardrails. Like I mentioned, like if you want to make this more like a triple whale, then you can actually build out your agent in such a way that it's more prescriptive, right? So you can build out, for example, the actual output format, right? So you can actually specify how the output format should be, so that it forces the agent to put the data in the right spot, instead of just as text, and then that can help give you more consistent results. But yeah, I mean, this is early days of AI agents. It's only going to get better, and so here's one for you guys to play around with. You can build it yourself by just sort of following along with my explanation on the different nodes that are being used. If you want this as a template, just let me know in the comments below if that's something that you want to see. And we're planning on building out some more AI agents with N8N, particularly for Shopify store owners. So this can be around building agents for marketing. It could be building agents for operations, lots of different use cases, because we've spent the past however many years working with Shopify, and there's a lot that can be done by having certain automations in place that can just help us be more efficient with our work. And so I think 2025 is going to be a really interesting year for e-commerce, because when we start building out agents to do all of these things, we can really scale quickly with small teams. And so I'm super excited for everything that can for 2025 and what we can start to do with AI. And we're going to work on building out these agents for you to see as well. So that's a little peek into some of the things that we're going to be working on. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you'd like to see, what workflows or agents that you think would be useful for your business. And we can consider it for some future videos. Okay, so that's it for today. Hope you like that one, and I'll see you in the next one.